Welcome to English Myths Explained, because some of the most common rules in English and English education were invented, exaggerated, or simply wrong. Let's get into it.
There is a grammar rule you have probably been following your entire English learning life, and it is not a real rule. Today, we are debunking one of the most persistent myths in the English language, the idea that you cannot end a sentence with a preposition. Look at these sentences. What are you talking about? This is the book I was telling you about. She had no one to talk to. That's the kind of nonsense I won't put up with. Every single one of those sentences ends with a preposition, and every single one of them is completely, perfectly correct English. Native speakers say these things every day, in conversations, in professional meetings, in newspapers, in literature. If you have been avoiding this construction, rewriting sentences to avoid ending them with a preposition, you have been making your English sound more unnatural, not more correct. So where did this rule come from? In the 17th century, a group of English grammarians became obsessed with the idea that English should behave like Latin. Latin was considered the perfect, sophisticated language, the language of scholars and the church. And in Latin, you grammatically cannot end a sentence with a preposition. The structure of Latin simply does not allow it. So these grammarians decided that English should follow the same rule. They invented a prohibition that had never existed in natural English and began teaching it as though it were a fundamental law of the language. The problem is that English is not Latin. English has never been Latin. English developed entirely independently, and ending sentences with prepositions has been natural in English since Old English, long before these 17th century grammarians decided it was wrong. There is a famous story, possibly apocryphal, but too good not to share, about Winston Churchill. An editor corrected one of Churchill's manuscripts, rearranging a sentence to avoid ending it with a preposition. Churchill reportedly wrote back in the margin, "This is the sort of nonsense up with which I will not put." He was making the point brilliantly. The corrected version is technically preposition-free. It is also completely unnatural, awkward, and almost impossible to follow. The attempt to fix the supposed error created something far worse than the original. That is exactly what happens when you rigidly avoid ending sentences with prepositions. You produce English that is technically defensible and practically painful to read or hear. Let me show you directly what I mean. Natural English? Who are you waiting for? Corrected version? For whom are you waiting? Natural English? This is something I've never heard of. Corrected version? This is something of which I have never heard. Natural English? She's easy to talk to. Corrected version? She is someone with whom conversation is easy. The corrected versions are not wrong, but they are formal to the point of sounding strange in most contexts. In everyday professional English, in emails, in presentations, in conversations, the natural version is always the better choice. The only context where avoiding terminal prepositions is sometimes appropriate is highly formal written English. Academic papers, legal documents, formal correspondence. Even there, many style guides now accept the natural construction. So here is your permission, in plain English. End your sentences with prepositions. Do it confidently. Do it naturally. Because that is how educated native speakers have been speaking and writing for centuries. The next time you catch yourself rewriting a sentence to avoid a terminal preposition, stop. Ask whether the natural version sounds better. It almost certainly does. This is one myth down. Subscribe to Fluent Daily for more, because real English fluency means knowing the actual rules, not the invented ones.